talking about 2020 for a second, and all of the fun that it has brought us. I actually thought that it was super timely that, not that Matt was unavailable today. That was rather unfortunate. But it brought around a really interesting opportunity, because yesterday I happened to be on a Zoom talking with Adrian and Francisco Salinas about some other topics that we can be having in the HR Fireside chats. And Adrian had some really kind comments to make about some activity that we just happened to be having in the background. I don't know, I've talked to you guys a bit in these sessions about how I'm homeschooling my third grader and my kindergartner. And occasionally you guys have seen me throw a ball for my very hyperactive healer Aussie mixed dog Moose. And Adrian, I'm going to have you on mic, and we're going to kind of go back over some parts of that conversation that we had, just because I think that it's important that we acknowledge that we have really busy lives and stuff is going on right now.
Yeah, thanks, Kaysi. I was just relaying that, like, kind of at the start when everything moved online, I felt like there was this feeling of, I don't know, like shared trauma, and we were all just really flexible and understanding, and life was happening in the background and trying to figure out, school from a distance and all that. And then I felt like at some point in the fall it had shifted, like as we started to go back to school, like, okay, but like kids need to be in daycare now and life needs to look professional and normal. And like I was in a meeting with Kaysi about an hour ago, and I was in my son's room with the Pokemon stickers on the wall. Now I'm not, like, I'm still feeling that. And so, like, how do we show up and out in a way that, like, our lives are kind of invisible, right? And so I go into a meeting, I tell my kids, like, don't interrupt me. And I ask my husband, like, can you watch the kids so no one knows that we have kids? And there's this, like, denial of, like, my actual lived reality. I heard this study a long time ago on the radio, and it was about fast food. Maybe it was McDonald's, looking internationally about like when employees are required to smile versus if they're not. And they're actually much less happy if they're required to smile, because it's inauthentic to how they're actually experiencing their world. And I think about that, for how I felt like I was supposed to show up. And no one told me that. I just noticed other people were starting to be back in the office, and so I needed to look like I was in it too. Even though there's like chaos happening around me. We also got a COVID puppy. Maybe the best worst idea of COVID, I don't know. But she barks a lot, and she needs lots of, like, she's a puppy. She needs me to throw the toy a lot. And so yesterday I saw Kaysi throwing a toy, and it just, I think I've been thinking a little bit, I've seen colleagues like who also have sort of made that shift and had conversations too, but like, instead of kids like crawling up in lap and having a yogurt, now the screen goes black and the audio goes off, and people are just disappearing from the sessions. And I think there's this idea that like that part of our life has to be invisible, right? We don't have that vulnerability, and it feels like the empathy isn't there to show up as our whole selves. And I realized that it felt kind of radical to see Kaysi doing that yesterday. And so I said, thank you, because I think what I really need is to see other people still living their whole lives. Like, we are still, some of us, in our homes with puppies and children and other chaotic things happening. And it feels even more difficult to pretend that they're not. And it feels like my relationship with my kids isn't healthy when I pretend that they're not existing and that they have to be out of sight, out of mind. And so I feel a deep sense of gratitude anytime I see someone not have their camera go black when they have a kid walk in the room, or a puppy dog on the bed next to them as they're working on their laptop. And so, I don't know, I guess I just wanted to share that I need that from people, and I'm guessing probably other people do too. And I think it could be really helpful to check in with supervisors. I think about Brene Brown talks about, like, in the absence of information, we tell ourselves stories, right? Like, no one told me like kids can't be around, but I made that up, right? And then I felt like I had to do that. And that, I was able to talk to my supervisor, and that wasn't actually how he felt. Like he was much more flexible than that. And so I think as supervisors, we can have those conversations with supervisees, and then also just as colleagues, one of the things that can be powerful, at least for me, is to see other people living their whole selves and showing up with their whole lives and all of the things happening around them. And yeah, I just wanted to say that was something I need, and I'm guessing maybe other people do too. And I would invite us to have those conversations with our colleagues and our supervisors.
Oh my God, Adrian, you just like stole the show. Thank you so much for that. I love when people on mic and on camera and show up, and Hadley wants to say hi. Hi. Because that's what we have to do every single time. Hey, please sit down and finish your lesson. I've just gotten to the point where in life, over the last several weeks, where I'm like, I cannot, it is taking too much energy to try to shove them in different rooms and have them do school. And that's why I intentionally set up their stations so close to me, and they're small. I have to be able to help them. But it was validating for me as not only just like a human, but a colleague, when somebody was like, hey, you seem to be rocking it. And I had a vulnerable moment with her afterwards, and I was like, actually, I'm stressed to the nines. Like every time they say something, I'm like, oh my gosh, be quiet. But then her grace and like, no, it's okay. It gives me permission to let them need me for a second. And I have experienced that it's made me a more thoughtful parent in the sense that like, I have to tell my children, is this a thing you need from me right now? Or is this something in wait? And we've shifted the dynamics of how we work together as a family, as we spend 24/7 around each other, which has really made me think about what is quality time and what is quantity in time, and how do we balance that. But as an employee, I just wanted you all to know that we probably do need to be validating those things when we see them in the moment, even if it's just saying, hey, do you have 2 extra minutes to stay on this Zoom so I can tell you that I think you did well in that? Even if you probably know the person in front of you was a little like, this was stressful. People need to be validated in their experiences. So one of the things that I wanted to use this opportunity with Matt not being able to be here is kind of like set some of the groundwork and just talking about my experience. And Adrian, thank you so much for sharing yours. If anybody else wants to talk about what they are experiencing in this time, we also have Holly here who's going to talk a little bit about wellness in all this. But for me, I think it's really important that we start to normalize some of these conversations and be talking about them. So one of the things that I wanted to be very transparent about is I don't always finish all of my work. Like Sean is my supervisor, and I go to him and I tell him I didn't get that done. And I have to have clear communication with him about what are my expectations for this week. And if I can't meet them, I use sick time, or I've talked to Tiffany about my leave options. There's a form that I'm going to put that you can go and you can fill it out, and it tells you what leave options you have available to you if you are struggling with productivity. But as an employee, I have to have regular check-ins with my supervisor to make sure that my work is prioritized in a way that it's achievable, and that I have that balance. And Holly's going to talk a lot about boundaries and not killing yourself. And you have to have those hard conversations about like, you aren't going to hurt yourself and trying to get all the things done. Just be candid and open with what you are struggling with. And I feel very fortunate that I have a supervisor who will have that conversation. Make sure that you are doing the work that you can and that you're getting it all done, and you set aside time for yourself. One of the things that we're going to cover is that your wellness time. I use my wellness time every single week. And I think that you guys should as well. Make sure that it's something that you do that is going to be fulfilling to you, and use your EAP. I was terrified reading an article that Gallup threw out about investing in your employees during COVID, as far as emotionally investing in your employees during COVID. And I saw that 6% of employees who knew about their EAP were actually using it. 6%. And that's a resource that's available to everyone. If only 6% of our university employees are actually using that resource, that's an awful shame, because everybody needs a little extra love and grace right now, even if you're not using it for counseling services. I recently went and got myself this really cute like behavior tracker thing, a habit tracker. That's what it is. Super cute. $15 on Amazon. And I put my like monthly goals on there. But like you could have financial goals, and you can use the EAP to talk to somebody about your financial goals. You could be living your best life in COVID because you're an introvert and you love not having to go to the office and deal with people. That's cool. The EAP is still available to you as a free resource to you as an employee. Please go use it. I think I've put it on. Yay, Kip, thanks for throwing it in the chat, man. I love the assist from my team, by the way. So I did see that we had a really great comment on there. Was a shout out to Adrian. Thanks, Adrian. We don't get to have departmental barbecues and events where we would include family members. It's good to see our coworkers and their families in their home. Thank you for that. I want to, if you have thoughts in chat, throw them in. If you would like to unmic and talk about an experience you had either with a colleague or yourself, I would love to hear from you before I hand over to Holly, who's got some great stuff for us. But know that we're here for you as well. And we just want to make sure that this conversation is not one that goes into the dark. This is the part of me that like freaks out when y'all go quiet and everybody's muted and I only see 4 faces. Thank you. EAP is great. Lori unmiked. What do you got for me, babe?
Well, I just really wanted to share with you how much it means to me to have these kind of meetings, that it has validated in me the value of taking care of myself and giving me a little bit of permission to do that. Because I was sitting in front of the computer doing my work, and sometimes it was just like there wasn't much to do, so you're just sitting there, you know, just trying to figure out what do I do next. And this is validated that, oh, you can go ahead and take your 15-minute, 20-minute breaks, and you can go do that which is you can go take the dog for a walk, or you can do what it is that you're thinking of, but you feel like you're tied to that computer.
No, that's great. And sometimes if you get into those moments where you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? You spend more time spinning and stressing about the fact that you're not doing something rather than giving yourself a minute. And sometimes I'll be in that Zoom and my kids are like, and I'm like, stop it. It is more times than not if I just say, give me a second, and I get them figured out, and then I can come down. I don't stress out as much. I mean, yeah, it's kind of one of those moments where I have to put the meeting on pause, but I've found in the last 3 weeks of giving myself permission to put my work on hold for 30 seconds, literally, is all it takes for me to get my 5-year-old on the next screen. But that reduces my personal stress, and it kind of creates an interesting dynamic. The person in front of me is not put off by it. Like, nobody's been annoyed. And I think that was the most surprising. So I know, like, not all of you guys have kids. We're not all in the same situation. If you're finding you're in that moment, you're like, what do I do next? What do I do next? Da, 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 da. Maybe you need to get away from your computer, go for a 5-minute walk, and use that walk to reprioritize what you need to do next. text your boss, say, send me the next thing. And as you're walking, read that email on your phone and just start to let your brain do the work. I mean, we think that in the traditional workspace, if you're sitting in front of your computer, you're doing the work, but you could just as easily be on Facebook at work as you are at home. Not that we condone that. We want you all to be doing your stuff. And I mean, like, I have to be doing my stuff too. But I mean, if you give yourself 5 minutes worth of grace, you can be so much more productive in the next 20 minutes. And productivity is not time in your seat. It's work product done. Tina, you unmiked, babe.
I did. I wanted to say that in my role, I talk to a lot of people outside of the university. So vendors, consultants, I don't know, all kinds of people in different areas of industries. And it's not just us who have dogs barking in the background, kids crawling in laps, cats cleaning themselves on your keyboard. It's people all over the place. I mean, and I think it is the norm, and people are very understanding and forgiving of it. And I know, like, if you're only kind of stuck talking to the same, you know, like only within the university, and you're worrying like, oh my God, is this weird? It's not, it's global. I mean, it's like, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen very random, strange things going on in the background of people's lives. And it's just, you know, I think we all are in this, feeling this together, you know, and I think a great way to approach it too is just with some humor. You know, like my nephew crawled into my lap one time and just started going crazy. And we were like in this really high intensity meeting, you know, like with Mark Kyle and all this stuff. And it was just like, we all just kind of paused and laughed, and he introduced himself, and then we moved on. So
it's a nice palate cleanser sometimes, those pets, those kids. I mean, and it's like, okay, so all y'all parents know when your baby's crying, the stress level is off the charts. When it's somebody else's baby crying, it's not a big deal. So like, we just need to constantly remind ourselves that. And be like, it might be stressful for 35 seconds, but we're all humans. Most of us have been there. Most of us are going to have grace for one another. I'd love to have Holly on mic for a second, because she said that she would also be able to talk about this from like a supervisor angle. And if any of you are supervisors that you would like to unmic and talk about some experiences that you've had with your employees coming to you needing grace, how you handled some of those conversations. I'll talk all day about needing grace and all sorts of stuff. 2020, I was told earlier this year by a complete stranger, I hope 2020 is the worst year of your life. And I'm like, because she wanted, the situation I was in was bad. And she was like, I really hope this is the worst year of your life. And I'm like, me too, because it can only go up from here, guys. So Holly and anybody else who wants to unmic and talk about their experiences.
I was going to say, if anyone else wants to share, because I have in my 2 slides that I have, one of them talks about tips for some of that. So if anyone wanted to share, I can go last.
That's right. I did not mute some of my notifications. Okay. It's okay if we're just starting this conversation. Let me get this into present mode and we'll get into Holly's slides, because maybe the conversation will happen when we get there. Okay. Maybe. Next slide. There we go. All right, Holly, take it away.
Thank you so much, Kaysi. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm Holly Levin with BroncoFit Wellness Services on campus, and got asked to talk about kind of wellness during this time. Matt and I, who was supposed to be here, work really closely together, and so I can share some of his thoughts as well. The biggest message, I guess, is, you know, you can read the slides and take something that resonates with you, but mostly to just be gentle with yourself. It's a hard year, and that's the reality of it. there's really no getting around that. It's hard for a multitude of reasons that different people are dealing with, and it's not going to be perfect, and we need to lower some of those expectations of having it be like another year. So I have some tips of staying well, and kind of what does that really mean. And I know maybe you think that the wellness person is going to come at you and tell you to, you know, get all your fruits and veggies in and go for a run all the time. And actually those are great things if that's what you choose to do, but that's not my main message of all of this. So kind of some first steps here is, I think when things get so tumultuous and so unknown and so much uncertainty, that going back to basics can help our mind calm down a little bit, because in our heads we think, I have to do the exact same things I was doing before to stay on my trajectory of where I was going. And really just breathing and getting back to, how can I move, how can I eat, and how can I sleep? Sleeping is, I think, one of the most overlooked things. We don't talk about it very much, and the effects that it can have on our productivity, on our mood, on our mental health and physical health is huge. And so I have a toddler, so I don't really have a choice, but I've made it more of a goal to really just go to bed earlier. And it's actually helped. And I think when you set a good foundation like this with moving in a way that you enjoy, we don't really call it exercise. If you go on a walk, if you do a workout class, if you garden, whatever, moving in a way that brings you joy, eating when it sounds good to you, and getting some good sleep, setting that foundation is going to enable you to have more unknowns thrown at you, being able to pivot a little bit better, and not to mention being able to deal with some sickness, either, you know, just colds and flus, or other things that can help if you have a little bit of a foundation set up. This next point I wanted to cover is what does self-care and wellness mean for you? Because self-care is, just as it sounds, very personal. And I think maybe when people hear self-care, they might think like, this girl's going to go tell me to take a bubble bath or something. Or I'm going to tell you something that just seems so out of your world and out of your comfort zone. And really I think self-care is so different for everybody. But what I want to get at is that if I said, hey, go on a walk today, do some self-care. If you go on your walk and enjoy it, but then have to work through the night to make up for going on the walk, that's not really worth going on the walk, right? And so it's kind of, a lot of it's setting boundaries and saying, you know, it's whatever, 4, 5, 6, whatever kind of time you end your day, and drawing a line and saying, I'm good. Or if you're the type that kind of pops on and off throughout the day, that's cool too. Everybody's different. I really like the idea of scheduled breaks. Is putting it on your calendar. People have really said that just really helps, is having it, okay, half hour. You can call it sunshine time. You can call it walk your dog time. You can call it take a nap time. Absolutely. Naps are fine to do. I mean,
if you're working from home and you're still getting your work done, what does it hurt?
Yeah. Yep. And so basically it's just, my point here is with self-care is to really think about, are there certain activities that like really boost your well-being, that you can either incorporate into your day or to your week, and how do we find time in the day to do those? And they make you a better employee, they make you a better person. And think about how we can do that. The BroncoFit wellness release time, just because we're at home doesn't mean we can't use it. I actually encourage you to use it. So if you're not familiar, it's an hour a week of release time to do anything that contributes to your health and well-being. People use it for physical activity. People use it for counseling appointments. People use it for truly anything. If your supervisor is okay with it, anything that contributes to your health and well-being, you can use it for. That fits into, like, if you're familiar, 8 dimensions of wellness. So that could be a lot of different things. And so I think it just enables us to have a little bit of, we got to humanize this experience a little bit. We're not robots, we are people. And we're not predictable like machines are, and we just need little breaks, right? This last little link on here, if you haven't tried Midday Mindfulness yet, we offer it 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. I lead 2 of the sessions. I'm leading today at 1 o'clock if you'd like to hop on. It's 10 to 15 minutes, so it's just a really easy way to have a scheduled break, first of all. Nothing's expected of you in that 10 to 15 minutes, and I think that's what people like to hear. You don't need to do anything. You can just sit and close your eyes, and I'm going to guide you through kind of an introductory mindfulness exercise. So please hop onto that if you're interested. We've had really positive feedback from those. And then before you go to the next slide, just this run your race over here. I saw this on LinkedIn, and I just really, really liked it. And I don't know if you saw it too, because I'm sure it was one of those things that had thousands of likes. So the run your race, it was this metaphor, and they were talking about, I think it was like a high school cross-country meet, and there were 2 leaders, and this girl was falling behind because she was so caught up in what the other racer was doing, and her coach yelled out to you, stop running her race, run your own race. You're doing fine. And the metaphor comparison is that during this time this year, we're all running our own race, right? Some of us have kids at home. We're doubling as teachers or daycare providers. Some of us have sick family members we're caring for. Some people haven't seen their family in years or a year because of travel. So everybody's dealing, the racial injustices that are happening. Everybody is dealing with so many things. And what I want to promote, and what this story was saying, is that allow each other to run your race, right? And we're all going to get to the finish line together, but everybody's running a different race, and we need to support everybody's race that they're running, and understand that it's different from yours, but we're all going to make it, and we're all going to get to the finish line together. So I just really liked that metaphor that I saw. Happy to check in on the chat if anyone has questions or thoughts before we move on to the next slide.
All right, Abel had a question. Couple thoughts. Couple thoughts. Abel, I think that's the most I've heard from you in a minute. I'm just kidding. I find that when I'm feeling down, I reach out to someone else and check in on them. Lose yourself in service, caring for others has a great byproduct. It makes you feel better. When I come out on the other side of all of this, I truly believe we will be all more empathetic and loving to one another as individuals and supervisors with our own employees. Like other tragedies such as 9/11, the best thing that came out of it was the people united. I'm seeing that we are uniting even more than ever here at Boise State. I really like that. Thank you for saying that, Abel. I do agree with that as well, that there's been a lot of tragedy in all of this, but some people are really coming out of the woodwork to make this as good as it can be, and some good always comes out of tragedy, even if it's just that people learn how to love each other again. There was a question of how long is the wellness release time? 60 minutes. I'm throwing the link in right now. Oh, I threw in the link for BroncoFit wellness release time. I'm getting Karen her mindful minutes in chat right now. And yes, Holly has great advice. Adrian is saying that she's definitely had more authentic conversations and relationships develop with colleagues throughout this. And yes, your wellness release time can be used for things other than physical activity. If you need to use, like parents on this call or supervisors on this call, perhaps it's used as your kid's class time. Like one day a week, this is how I help my kids with their class. Have that conversation, because I know that hour while my kids are in class is my least productive. I don't ever say that I have done a full hour's worth of work in that hour that both my children are in class. I'm going to go to your next slide, Holly.
Sounds good. And I also, a lot of you have been sharing, that you feel more united, having deeper conversations. And I'll say with the Midday Mindfulness, we just sent out a survey yesterday for participants, and so many people have said that it actually, even though we're virtual, it actually brings a sense of community that they didn't have before when we were on campus. So it's just kind of a space to be together and breathe together. And really, I'm the only one with my camera on because everyone's has their eyes closed and is breathing, so it doesn't matter. So you can't even see each other, and people are saying that it's giving them a really good sense of community. So it's just a break, and I encourage you to hop on there. Okay, so some tips and resources here. This is for both supervisors and team members, everybody else. So Adrian was just saying having more intentional conversations with your team and not just about work. And so where I got this is that, from the university, we're hearing messages of, you're not going to be the same level of productivity, right? You're going to have to take things off your plate. But at the same time, we hear, prove your worth, right? Get everything done. And so where that comes in is a very intentional conversation between supervisor and employee of what can make sense to take off their plate. If something has to come off, what's the best thing? We don't all love certain things about our job, but some things do have to continue happening. Sure. And so what's something that can be taken off and say, I'm not going to do this. Is that okay? And have that conversation so that both parties really feel comfortable in what's happening with that. Encourage trainings and skill sharpening opportunities. I know travel is obviously not an option right now, but I was speaking at the Women in Leadership Conference 2 weeks ago and asked my employee who loves all things women in leadership to be my moderator so that she could go to the rest of the conference for free and join in on sessions like that. So any opportunities you can find, and it's not just, to me, it's not really about her developing the skills from that conference. It's a good distraction, right? From kind of like the realness that's going on, and saying, I'm going to go sit and listen to someone else talk for an hour, maybe learn something, but I think it brightens your mood when you get to do something a little bit exciting. Recognizing signs of significant distress and referring people if necessary. So Kaysi talked about the EAP. And not that, there are checklists for looking for signs of significant distress, but honestly, if they're just not seeming like themselves, right? If they're, more quiet than usual or just not as engaged, just checking in. And I know a lot of supervisors don't feel comfortable talking about, the well-being of their employees. And I understand that. And I think because I live in this world so closely, it's just different for me, but I understand that people don't want to cross a line. They don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. And so something you can say, you don't have to go telling your employee, you don't have to go into detail about what's going on at all, but I'm happy to point you to resources that could be helpful for you. And if you need someone to talk to, we can get you to that right person. People always felt this way about wellness release time too. Like, I don't want to tell my employee that they should use it to go work out. And that doesn't have to be the conversation. It's just saying, here's an hour. What's something that you like to do that contributes to your health and well-being? And I'm good with it if it makes sense. Empathy and availability. I've tried, even down to our student employees, tried to make myself more visible. I didn't always go to their team meetings when we were in person because our other staff kind of handled that. And now I pop onto their team meetings just so they know who I am, honestly, because I haven't met half of them in person. That's how weird this is. So I pop onto their team meetings. I just try to be visible for them and available. They have my number if they need it. So I just wanted to kind of share that there's ways of going about this, that it doesn't have to be a scary thing if you have to have a conversation with somebody or refer somebody, that hopefully we can all help each other run our races. And so I'm here for questions, comments. Doesn't have to be just this hour. Anytime you want to reach out and chat, happy to chat with you. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to throw, you had a link in there for the workplacementalhealth.org, just in case anybody's so cute. Adrian, I love your puppy. Thanks for bringing him to the show. Yeah, we have this, the remaining 8 minutes is yours. If you would like to stay on this topic, we also have all of our, we have a lot of HR folks on this call. I want to say from like just a personal experience, if you have an employee that needs resources, our ER team is fantastic. Tiffany Widman does a lot of the leaves, and if they need to go have a conversation with her, she has personally helped me understand those leave options and what's available to me. But then also just as a genuinely beautiful human, she empathizes and is a wonderful person to talk to about getting you the right resources. If you have any questions for me, any questions for my HR folks that are still on the line, this is your time to do as you please. And thank you again so much for being here. We love having you here.
Thank you, Kaysi. Thank you, Holly.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you, Adrian.